Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this very special LUMIX live session that we have going on today. As all of you have seen with the news yesterday, we have just finally taken the veil off the brand new LUMIX S5, and I'm really excited to be coming to you guys today on this stream with a couple of our global ambassadors to talk about their hands-on experiences with it, show you some of the content that they created with it, answer some of the questions you guys have. I know there are a ton of questions about what this S5 means for the system, what it means for content creators out there, and also, what it means in general for Panasonic LUMIX across the board. I would like to first get out of the way here that if you are new to the LUMIX Live events, these sessions that we run weekly on Thursdays at 2 p.m., so right now, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, these are our conversations that we have with you guys, with guests, with myself sometimes, because, sometimes we just want to have a total tech-heavy, nerd-out session on equipment. If you guys want to support us doing these and really help us drive what you guys want to see on these kinds of streams, make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, comment in these videos what you guys want to see. We're always looking to evolve these events and make them better and better and truly make them more useful for everyone out there that's actually tuning in with these. If you've been here before, welcome back. Really excited to see you guys there. I see Cliff is back. Welcome, Cliff. Welcome, Ron. If you guys have questions for us during this session that you want to have us answer, if we can answer them on the actual live stream, make sure to tag at LUMIX Cameras, as you can see from Cliff's questions in there. Literally type the @ LUMIX Cameras. That makes it pop up on my screen here so that I can actually see what the questions are. For questions that I either don't have time to, or they may be a little too complicated to answer on stream, or if they're just way off topic for what we're talking about now, we have our team in the chat actually answering those questions as well. So make sure to get your questions in. These streams are recorded because they're YouTube live events. You will be able to watch them back afterwards with the chat as well. We try to keep everything as direct as if you were watching it live as we can. So, all of that fun stuff out of the way, I would like to bring in our two LUMIX Global Ambassadors, our LUMIX Global Ambassador Chris and Todd from the United States and from Germany, I believe. So, let's see here. Hey Chris, hey Todd, how are you guys doing?
Hey.
Hey, what's going on?
Chris, I got that right. You're based in Germany, or?
Yes, I'm based in Germany, in Hamburg, actually in the north. And it's pretty rainy right now.
Oh man, that's, I actually would like a lot of rain because it's 91 degrees here in Austin. I'm sure, Todd, you can relate with this being a little bit north of me right here, but yeah,
totally.
Yeah. But so really kind of jumping into this, those that have seen the launch content that has been out there from Panasonic, both of you guys shot some pieces for us to actually, kind of showcase what the camera can do in the hands of creators. So before we go too much into the details there, I think it's a good point to actually show and explain to everybody who you guys are. Since we're speaking to a global audience, not everybody has the ability to see the work that all of our ambassadors do globally. So Chris, can you give us a little bit of a background on who you are, what got you into photography? I know we were talking about this a little bit before, but yeah, give us some info about you.
All right, I'm Chris Kueper. I started with filmmaking first. When I was 16 years old, I was trainer on parkour. I was acrobatic stuff with some kids doing in the gyms. And one day I started filming those kids doing a backflip. So I thought I show them a video and explain on the video how they can be better with their tricks, and it worked pretty good. So I got tons of videos lying around on my desktop, and I was like, all right, I start editing those, and it was fun at first. So I bought a better camera. I rented a GH3 back then, and then at some point I bought a GH4. and I started doing some image work for small companies. And when I was a student, they asked me to film those parties, and it was pretty good, they said. So they asked me to do it again, and I was earning money. So I developed a little bit, and in the end, I started filmmaking in Germany. And nowadays, I own a company, Escape Film Production, and we got a lot of employees and a lot of good clients, and it worked out. So I'm pretty happy right now.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. No, that's the stuff I love to hear is like, people that had a passion for this and were able to make a successful business out of it. That's a very hard thing for a lot of people to do. And I think you've really encapsulated some of that stuff there. Now, Todd, can you give us some of the background on you, what got you into photography as well, and what you're up to?
Sure. So I started shooting back in the 80s, back when I was in, high school, a little bit before that, playing around shooting all through college, just had a passion for photography mainly. And then took a break and did a 26-year stint in the corporate world. And so I worked at Cisco Systems doing mergers and acquisitions and call center management, and wasn't doing a whole lot of shooting at all. And then ended up on a trip to India for a month for Cisco. Took my camera, and that just reignited my passion for photography, but then also videography as well. So soon after that, I took an opportunity when Cisco was doing an early layoff, if you will, program. So I put my name out there and jumped ship about 10 years ago and dove right back into doing creative content full time. And so it's been really fun to go back into photography, definitely beef up my skills with videography. I'm also the producer and do some video for a TV show on PBS, which is a Texas travel show called The Day Tripper. So I've been on that crew now for about 7 seasons, and just really have just dove in to the creative world and love it. And we were talking before off camera, Chris and I both work way more hours now than we ever did with our real jobs, and we're having way too much fun.
Yeah, that's again that's that kind of like really cool thing that the art world, the photography, videography, whatever style of art you're in, it can be a lot more work. It can be so much more time out of your day to actually devote to what you're doing. But it sounds as though you both love what you do, so that's always
Absolutely.
a positive.
For sure.
Well, cool. All right, so now that the introductions are out of the way and everyone kind of has an idea who you guys are, let's get into the thing that I believe pretty much everyone's actually tuning into this week's stream for, and that's the brand new LUMIX S5. I know both of you guys, like we said, had a lot of hands-on time with this before the camera actually was publicly launched. And that gives you guys a very unique, kind of point to be able to talk about, handling in a real world environment outside of a test studio and things like that. So I'm curious what your initial thoughts were when you actually got the cameras. I'll throw this one over to Chris to start with.
Yeah, of course. The first impression was, it is small and so handy. What is that? Is it the GH6 you're talking about? No, it's the S5. No, like the S5, not an L mount. All right, let's see. And pretty fast, I figured out it is like an S1H of the smaller size, and delivers nearly the same quality like the S1H does. And I was impressed, and I was like, wow, let's find out how it works on the field. And it did a great job. I was amazed about the like I said, the weight. For example, right now it's on the Ronin next to me. It's so fast to calibrate. It's for running gun. It's super lightweight. It's small with this new small 20-60 lens. It's just fun working with it, and I got it by my side the whole time because it's so light. If on a day trip, for example. So the first impression was, yeah, it's like an S1H in a smaller body, and I'm totally loving it.
Nice, nice. Now, how about you, Todd? I know you got the camera early as well. What were your feelings when you first got the camera in your hands?
I loved it. It was great. I mean, to Chris's point, it's small, it's lightweight, compact, and just it feels good in the hand. Usually, whenever you get a smaller camera, there's always that worry about, is it too small? Is it light? Am I going to drop it? But this just feels solid, and the set of features just, I mean, it performs. In fact, I was telling someone the other day, this really is going to become one of my main cameras to walk around with. I will leave my house the majority of the time with this camera, and then I'll just supplement that with either my S1 or my S1H, depending upon what the gig is or what I'm doing. But as far as just leaving the house, this is it. And I don't have anything that I'm missing as far as features here at all. And there's even some that I was surprised to see that super happy about. I know we're going to talk about it some. I mean, even the flip out screen for vlogging is just amazing. Love it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And that's kind of one of the things that I've always liked about the cameras that we have. Every iteration that a new product in a line comes out, there's a lot of times there are those surprises where there's features that you may not have expected to be in a camera like this. And over time, and I know that this isn't an answer for a lot of the questions that I'm seeing in the chat right now. Don't worry. I am going to go into more detail later on after we kind of cover more of this stuff to answer some of the questions you guys have. But as technology moves forward, it gets to become more democratized. You get to be able to take features that were at the time of a launch found in a higher end camera. They just naturally get to be brought down. And I think a lot of that stuff with the projects that both of you guys shot, some of that really shines through there. The 10-bit 60p in the camera. It's 420 10-bit. You get it is in the Super 35 region on this camera, but very much like you guys pointed out, the S1H, which is, the Netflix Post Technology Alliance certified camera, it sits incredibly well on a studio. You've all, I think, hit the nail right on the head that, not everyone wants to take those cameras out and go run and gun with, where you're trying to keep a small minimal package because they're big and heavy, but they're big and heavy for a designed purpose. So continuing on some of that, I want to actually answer a couple of these questions before we go too far into the details, because I think they're going to lead into some of the questions that I have about the video pieces we're going to show in a little bit. One of the questions that came up was, can you briefly, this was from FC 252 Photo 1, can you briefly explain what dual native ISO is? Well, so in Panasonic cameras, and I say Panasonic cameras very specifically because this is actually something that was originally in our system on the Vericam side. What it means is that it has two native ISO points on the sensor. What that gets you is an extended usable dynamic range performance at higher ISOs. So to put it in relative terms for the LUMIX system here, even though it's one company, dual native ISO for this means that at 640 ISO in video, you're going to get the maximum dynamic range to noise ratio that the sensor's designed for at that particular point. Whenever you increase your ISO after that or decrease your ISO after that, when you're at that point, you're either removing dynamic range in favor of better noise, or you're improving sensitivity to get better light gathering while still also impacting some of your dynamic range. So there's a balance there. And that's how most normal cameras have operated for a very long time. Dual native ISO in this camera means that when you actually switch over to 4000 ISO, and this is all in the Vlog profile, when you switch over to 4000 ISO, it switches an entire gain circuit. So you start back at 0 dB. So anyone that's in the video side of the world, you know that 0 dB would be your base ISO or your native ISO. When you start to go above 4000, it's the same thing as from the 640. You start increasing the gain, you get more noise, you can see better, And the trade-off there is that you start to lose a little bit of dynamic range. But the inverse is true as well. When you pull down from 4,000, you're getting a cleaner looking image, but your dynamic range starts to drop off a little bit. Where this is different from the S1H, the S1H has a manual override to actually put the camera into a high gain mode or a low gain mode. What that means is that if you're at 4,000 ISO in the high gain circuit and pull your ISO down to say 3,200, it'll actually produce a cleaner looking image than 640 ISO in the low range gained up to 3,200. So if you've come from the film world, think of it as you'd have a camera that you would put 640 speed film into or 4,000 speed film into, and then in post you're adjusting your exposures by, in that case, developing the film, or in this case by pushing or pulling. And this is noticed, not to go too far from the S5, this is noticed in the ProRes RAW update that is available for the S1H, and that is coming for the S5 down the line. That gets you the ability to see those ISO ranges and then learn, do you want to pull your ISO down or do you want to push your ISO up, depending on the look you're trying to get. So that's the diatribe on dual ISO. Hopefully that answers what most people want. That was an incredibly nerdy, technical explanation of it. And I'm sure someone's going to call out that I got something slightly wrong in there. But that's how the internet works. Okay, on to the actual projects. And like I said, the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because I think they fit into the projects that you guys both shot. So I want to start with Todd on this one. Can you give us a brief overview before we show the piece of what the project was and what your goals were for this?
Sure. So just to clarify, are you showing the Glassworks or the Fashion one?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yep, Glassworks.
Perfect. So there is a local glass maker, a glass blower that lives just a little bit up from me. And I wanted to really put the camera through the paces of doing a documentary style shoot that I do at times as well. And so I wanted to really put it through the paces of set it up on a tripod, single camera interview with somebody, plug in XLR microphones, set up the proper lighting, and just do a straight shoot with a talking head. And that was the first part of that interview process. And so I was able to do all of that with the S5 perfectly with no issues whatsoever. So like I mentioned, XLR condenser mic going in, shot it in 4K so I can punch in and punch out as needed. And then the second half of this was obviously, instead of having a talking head the whole time, was to really go in and shoot the B-roll to accompany that, especially because he was talking about the process of glass blowing and gathering the glass and shaping it and melting it down and adding the color and so on. So I really wanted to shoot and show all of that as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and say this just so it's out there. I had no issues with the camera overheating whatsoever. And I want to say that because I was sitting in a warehouse with him for 3 hours filming, 2,000-degree ovens. There were 3 of them in there. It's a metal warehouse, no air conditioning, in Texas, 95 degrees outside. And I was shooting at a combination of 24, 30, and 60, some to the Ninja and some internal, and had 0 issues whatsoever. And it was great just to put the camera through all those paces of shooting in all the different frame rates, some with a gimbal, some without, mostly handheld, and treated it like if I was shooting with my S1H. And it was just flawless, and it was great. It was really nice to have that compact camera so I can get in really tight and close and right up with him as he was working on the glass. Because there were some moments there where it was like, don't move, we're going to be coming around you with glass that's 2,000 degrees. So it was nice just to be compact and small and be right there with him in the middle of it all.
Very cool. Well, that's I think a great introduction for it. So for the viewers, let's jump over and actually show them the piece that you shot for this the glass blower.
My name is Gail Allard. I am the owner of Salado Glassworks here in Salado, Texas. And I have been blowing glass since 2002. I found myself in a glass studio in Temple, Texas, and I just fell in love with the craft. From the moment that I saw the movement of the glass, the fire, the heat, the smell, everything, I fell in love with it. The glass is 2,000 degrees. You can't actually touch it, but you have to use all these tools to make it do what you want it to do. You're constantly working against time, and you have a very small window of being able to create what you want to create and make it happen. You have to use the gravity, you have to use the temperature, and you have to have a vision of what you're trying to make before you even get started. And once you get started, there's no turning back. You've got to go from start to finish. You can't stop, you can't set it down. When you look at the work that I make, there is a lot of color that is being thrown together. I like to twist and pull and blend. Where there's balance, maybe create a little bit of imbalance. And I like a little bit of chaos too in the patterns and things that I work with. I think my most favorite part about glass blowing is that initial gather of glass. Through a series of blowings and shapings, we start to build the form of the vessel or the sculpture piece that we're working on. And we use a lot of gravity, a lot of heat. And from that point, we're stretching, we're pulling, we're blowing, we're letting gravity take over and kind of really helping us create whatever it is that we've designed to make. When I'm done finishing the piece, we're going to break it off the punny, and that is where it's going to go into the oven. It's going to stay overnight and cool down very slowly. The next day we'll be able to take it out and see what we've made. Every day when I come into work, I get to create with a medium that allows me to do something completely different from one day to the next. I'm very thankful that I get to be a glass blower, to share my passion and some of the work that I create with those that get to come in and witness me creating. And hopefully something inspires them enough that they get to take a little piece of me home with them.
Panasonic.
All right, yeah. So as we're already getting questions from people that were just watching that, I hope you can fill us in on some of these, Todd, here. So one of the first questions I saw in here was, what lenses did you use to shoot that project?
So I used a combination of the new 20 to 60 that's part of the kit for the S5. And then I also shot it with the 24 to 70 2.8 DS Pro line.
Nice. The other question I got in here is, what did you use for stabilization in that piece?
So there was a combination of two things that I used. Some of that was the Ronin S, the gimbal, but the other part of it was my GorillaPod. I'm a really big firm user of the GorillaPod attached to the camera, and that becomes stabilization for me. It's that whole thing about the number of points of contact to the body, 1, 2, and 3 against the eye, and I can just push in. I feel like I have more control that way, and so I use this a lot.
Yeah, cool. Let's see. Another question that came up here is, which color profile did you use to shoot this project in?
I shot that in Vlog, and then I used the Vlog to Rec 709 conversion LUT for the Vericam, which is on the Panasonic site. And then from there, I will just grade to taste.
Nice. Now, for those that are watching it here on YouTube, the one thing I would say about the way, obviously, with YouTube streaming, is it does compress the video. I encourage everybody to take a look at this video, especially watch it on an HDR display in its true 4K HDR goodness, because there's just something about the glow from that glass that standard dynamic range just doesn't really get across as to how much detail and how much dynamic range you actually have with this. Now, going on with that too, there's a lot of motion in that video. There's a lot of you sweeping around with it. How did you feel the autofocus system worked for your applications?
I felt it worked great. Some of it I was using the tracking feature. Some of it I had it on face tracking for him. A lot of times though, when I was moving like around a piece of glass, I used the object tracking function. So I would set the object tracking to the glass, and then I would just move and it would just shift and keep that in focus as I moved around. And so those are the two main modes that I use. And then there were some manual focus, punches that I used as well for it.
Very cool. Very cool. So I think as you commented about, the thermals and stuff like that, that clearly that's an incredibly hot environment. Just watching everything about that, I was sweating sitting here watching it. But for those in the chat that are asking, if you go to the YouTube channel that you're on right now, after this live stream, of course, if you stay on the YouTube channel you're on now, or go to your region's YouTube channel, since we have a lot of different versions across the globe, the HDR version is loaded up there. Just make sure you're watching it on an HDR television or an HDR display, and you'll be able to see it in that full HDR grading goodness. So before we go too far along, because I want to end up having a little bit more of a conversation after we look at both these videos, I want to check in with Chris here on your video that you shot, and then after that we'll do the same thing. Could you give us a little bit of a insight into the idea and the concept behind the video that you created?
Yes, of course. I wanted to create something while traveling, but Corona doesn't want me to travel around, so I thought about doing some urban shots, urban lifestyle. I want to show how handy and how small this camera is and how portable for everyone. So I decided to have some kind of chasing scene inside the city of Hamburg. And yeah, it's a little bit of a story, but mostly it's just needs to be cool. So a little bit of urban chasing. So I thought about, I want to go to the light settings where it's hard to film with that camera. So I tested it in the hard parts in the city. So I would start it in the middle of the night, and then in the sunrise, and I ended in the sunset. But yeah, that's mainly my project. So it's fast, cut it, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a look at that video piece now.
Panasonic.
Very cool. Very cool. We're already getting a bunch of people in there commenting about it. So, Chris, I kind of want to ask the same questions for you that were asked with Todd's, because obviously it's the same questions we're getting in there. So, what lenses did you use to shoot this project on?
It's probably the same answer like Todd. It's a combination of lenses. I used to work with the 20-60 most of the time because it is so lightweight and so small and perfect for Ronin. It's wide angle at 20 millimeters, and yeah, I used it most of the time. Sometimes there was the 24-70 2.8, the LUMIX S Pro, and I think once I used the 70-200, but I don't know yet. And most of the time, you were seeing me using the camera because I wanted to make it more realistic. And on the Ronin, for example, you saw the 20-60. I used the 20-60 most of the time, probably about 80%, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's I think what's so cool about, you know, why I wanted to make sure people saw both of these pieces of content, because it really shows the breadth of work that you can create with this one camera. From narrative, you know, 2430p style content up to 60 frames per second, you know, more fast paced, the jump cut style look, the perfect mix with the audio, which when I actually showed my wife both the videos, she was looking at them, and it's like you get such a cool feel from both of them. You get that more intimate documentary style from your work, Todd, and then you get that really upbeat, quick cut, timed with the audio transitions in your piece, Chris. And it's really cool to see that actually in play, all from the same camera. So with your piece also, Chris, what color profiles were you using for the piece that you created?
Yeah, I shot all the video in 4K 60 10-bit to 4:2, and I used the V-Log the whole time. And like Todd, I corrected from a lot to where it fits best for me.
Yeah, cool. Now, there's something unique in your piece, Chris, that I really want to touch on, because we've already gotten a couple questions about it. And as a photographer myself, I have gotten a lot more into video production, obviously with LUMIX Live and some of the other stuff that I do for the company now. Photography is always kind of that core part of what I like, and especially astrophotography, night starscapes, things like that. Those that were watching noticed that there was a nice light painting shot that you did at the beginning of the piece. Could you explain how you created that for the piece?
Yes, of course. I wanted to check out the new live composite mode. I think it was in the G series, in the LUMIX G81, I don't know.
It was in the G90, G95.
G90, okay, sorry. It is the first time it is in the full frame camera, and right now I wanted to check if I'm able to work with that. And I used to do long time exposures, and you know that when you're doing 20 seconds or more in the bulb mode and long time exposure, the main problem was all the lights are getting lighted up. Not just one, not just the lights you want to get light up. You can fix it in post-production, but you don't want to. And with the live composite mode, you got the chance to create a plate. So you make sure the black is like that and the white is like that. And after that, you can see the picture develop on your screen, because there's no black screen during a long time exposure anymore. And it's excellent for light painting. And this is why I created the light painting in the video. And it gives us so much more creativities than we can think of. For example, a star lapse, you see the stars moving in the on the screen. It isn't. You weren't able to see that before. And I just started playing around with that mode. It is way more than that. So I'm very happy it is in the S5.
Yeah, and that was actually for those that have been joining the LUMIX Live sessions. Last week we actually spoke with photographer Luke, and we specifically covered live view composite and the different ways that you can use it. Now, granted, we were using that on the G95, but obviously it is now in the S5 as well. As I'm pointing to my S1R, it's in the S5 as well. But it's definitely one of those features, you know, just like you were saying, Chris, that works incredibly well for those that want to do light painting and used to have to do a lot of the trial and error that we would have to do with light painting. Shoot the exposure, do your painting, wait for it to process, and then see, okay, did it actually look the way you wanted it to look? Or for like the way I like using it for shooting starscapes, being able to actually see the stars build through the sky, and know that it's all being done in camera. I think the cool thing to note for a lot of the photographers out there that are interested in this kind of feature is that just because it's an inbuilt camera feature doesn't mean you end up getting limited to a JPEG output. This does record the image in RAW and in JPEG, so you still have the flexibility you would expect from a RAW file, to actually work with afterwards to make, your actual final tweaks to this. It ends up really just expanding the usability of styles of photography that might not necessarily have been accessible or may have been, I'd say, too intimidating for a lot of people to get into because of what you read online with it. So now that we've seen both of the pieces that you guys shot, I'm curious what your opinions were and if they kind of evolved from your first impressions of the camera after you've shot the products. Todd, can we have you answer first?
Sure. So when I first got the camera, obviously there's that whole process of learning what it can do and getting comfortable with it. And of course, there was no manual at the time we got it. So it's really going out and spending time and trial and error and playing with it. And I know I even called you a couple times asking a few questions. And you're like, I don't have mine yet. But it was fun to meet up and, get a coffee and look at some stuff and work through a few things and figure some stuff out. But as I shot through my projects and created the content, it just really it was almost like peeling back an onion. I just kept discovering more things that I could do. There was more goodness that was there and just really exposing more and more that the camera was capable of. Because once again, when you get a smaller camera, you think that maybe some features are going to be missing and then it's not going to hold up to what you're used to. But I had no issues. And like I said, when I was talking about the videos, I put this through the paces as if I was shooting with my S1H or my S1 and found no issues for what I do with this camera. It held up and accomplished everything I was asking for it to do and didn't walk away with anything missing, including the autofocus that I could definitely tell was working great, especially on the fashion side. I shoot a lot of fashion and commercial work, and it was just really cool, both video and photo, to see that tracking work in the autofocusing system. So I'm happy with it. I really, really am. And like I said, I'll go back to my comment. I will leave my house with this camera the majority of the time.
Nice. How about you, Chris? How has your opinion of the camera evolved from first look to actually shooting a project with it?
Yes, the first time I held it in my hands, I was pretty impressed because I got somebody with me explaining some details about the camera for the first time. And she was telling me about about the new autofocus, and I was like, okay, I need to get that feature into my video. And as you can see in my video, there are some features I wanted to point out a little bit. I was starting with the live composite mode, and then there's the high res mode, the stabilization itself, and the autofocus, of course, and there was a fifth, I don't know. The 4K 60 FPS 4:2. And I was concentrating on that 5 features. And so I started with the live composite mode and the high res. It's in the camera. I was so impressed, so happy because I used it on the S1H the whole time. It's if you're shooting interior for real estate or something like that, the client is always happy to have the quality as good as possible. And you can print that and you don't care about the quality because it's 96 megapixel. And coming to the autofocus, I got an interview situation in the video itself, and this one of my features, the autofocus. And I was like, okay, let's see. I was trying it for the first time with a person on set. Camera was set, and I was like, okay, let's see if it works. And it was incredible good. Having an interview situation where the object is moving a little bit, like I do right now. I got it so many times with the if you got an aperture about, I don't know, 1.8, 2.8, and you got a blurry background, and the bokeh needs to be looking good, but the focus size is just a tiny part on the face. And if you're doing it manually while shooting, while trying to ask the questions, you can, never mind, you don't get that. So I was happy to have that autofocus, and it was amazing. It worked. It was solid on the eyes the whole time. And even though my girlfriend actually turns the head back, it was detecting the back head. So the new system is eye, face, head, and body detection, which is I'm so thankful for that. It is working very good. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm happy with the camera in the end. It is so good. I love it.
I was doing a test the other day with a model for a review video that I was doing, and we actually had the model go behind a light post, like a big light post, and we put the camera on the other side of it, and it went from tracking the face to the head. We crossed over, and it picked her right back up on the other side. There was not a delay. There wasn't a pulsing in the autofocus at all. It just went right from one side to the next and picked her up. It was really cool and very responsive.
Yeah, and you can with the finger on the screen, you can switch between the eyes just with a touch. It is, it's become very good in my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a ton of improvements, within the LUMIX series. There's a ton of improvements on the S5, specifically with video autofocus and photo auto, and I can't talk today. Specifically with video autofocus and with photo autofocus. I think for those that have been in with the LUMIX system before, definitely when you have the opportunity, get into a location where you can actually get hands-on with it. I know that in some areas, that's a bit of a stretch to be able to actually go into a store and get hands-on with it, but it's definitely something to see for yourself. There are so many different applications out there for different styles of shooting that, again, I encourage everyone to really test it for yourself, see how it works. Like I can say, I use autofocus for these LUMIX live sessions, and I'll always keep harping on this. I've never had a single person comment about the autofocus on these streams. Now, of course, that I say that, I'm going to get a ton of people saying, autofocus this. But I kind of walked myself into that one. But there's a couple questions that people have been asking out here. So, wow, I totally just lost my place there. With the dual native ISO conversation, I just want to jump back real quick because I did see someone make a comment about that before. Dual native ISO works outside of Vlog as well. In the camera, it's just different points for it. If you look at the documentation that's out on the S5, that will have the information as to what ISOs your different modes are roughly for your dual native ISO circuitry there. As far as connectivity, since we're also seeing a lot of people ask questions about, audio connections and how the camera's connected in with the devices that you guys are working with, the S5 is compatible with the XLR1 adapter that we have already for the existing S series in the GH line. So if you need XLR audio and higher res audio, it's totally compatible with it as well. So that should be a nice carryover for a lot of people. I would be totally remiss to totally miss the other announcements that we made with the S5 as well. So coming by the end of the year, the S5 is already going to be getting a substantial firmware update. And I know a lot of people in the comments are going to have a lot of questions about this part. So I'm going to cover the announcement first. So by the end of the year, the S5 is going to get raw recording over HDMI support up to 5.9K 30p, or up to 30p in 5.9K. It'll get up to 4K 60p in the Super 35 region, so it's an actual raw recording. And you'll also get the anamorphic raw over HDMI recording as well. Now, the little bit of a difference between this and the S1, S1R, and S1H cameras is that this does have a micro HDMI input, so you just got to make sure you have an adapter and you're good to go there. And as Todd has mentioned before in a couple of other locations, make sure that you are using a rated proper HDMI cable for a lot of this stuff. You do remember that as you start pushing more and more data over HDMI, you want to make sure you're using good quality cables with it. The other really cool, features that are coming to the S5 as well is that it's going to get an extended range of video assist support in the camera. So you're going to get access to the vector scopes. You're also going to get access to master pedestal level, which if you don't know what master pedestal is, definitely look up the information about it before you start playing with it. It's designed to match black levels to different cameras. It does not extend your dynamic range necessarily, and it can really change the way your camera works in how you expect it to. So definitely look up master pedestal before changing a whole bunch of stuff on it. The other big thing is that the S5 is also going to be getting shutter speed and gain improvements for this platform. So you're going to have access to shutter angle as well as decibels, so dB, for gain in this system. So depending on the platform that you come from, if you're working as a videographer in the more traditional sense, you'll have the ability to represent your ISOs in decibels, so in gain. Or if you're coming from the cinema side, you can actually express it in shutter angle. Now, I already know a ton of the questions that have already been asked and are going to be asked. At this point, the only thing that we've announced that is announced for the firmware update paths right now is that the autofocus improvements are going to be brought over to the S1, S1R, and S1H. The S1R is also getting a 5K recording update as well. So keep an ear to the update paths, keep an ear to LUMIX Live and all of the other platforms as we get closer to when the firmware update releases. Aside from that, I don't have any other information on firmware updates for anybody, so I apologize if that's what you were looking to get an answer for. And actually, as video people just commented as well, the other cool tool in the S5 is the luminance spot meter, which is found in the S1H. So I think actually both of you guys have kind of put that in kind of a position with the S5, or let me rephrase that. Both of you guys, I believe, have commented about how, the S5 is positioned from a feature-wise compared to an S1H. It really does sit as kind of a mini S1H, a full-framed version of an S5, but I know that there are a lot of questions out there, and I am going to address them, that people are asking, where does this leave the S1? Now, I'm curious your guys' opinion on this as well, because obviously I have my opinions as someone who was actually carrying an S1 all the time as a street shooting camera, because that's what I like to do, street shooting and landscape. If you look at the two different cameras here, there are a lot of differentiating factors between the two that are going to come down to your style of shooting. Are you looking for ultra compact in full frame with still having feature and benefits that are valuable to your style of shooting? Or do you need some of those features and benefits and you need a more robust, heavier build camera that can potentially maybe work better in heavier adverse conditions? That is one of the big takeaways there when you look at S1 versus S5. The S1, it's a bigger body. You have the top plate LCD. You have the 5.7 million dot EVF. I cannot get EVF resolutions correct anymore. You have the higher resolution EVF. You have the triaxial rear tilt screen, which for some cases is a much better platform. For other cases, as we can see online, it's like a 50-50 split as to whether you like tilt screens or the fully articulating style. You also get on the S1, you're having a full-size HDMI port on it, where the S5 is a micro HDMI port. So you have to look at which tool is going to make the best platform for you. And we're Panasonic. We support our cameras. We have a proven track record. So, look at the cameras you have. You know that there are platforms, the way we've built these cameras, to fit the needs of photographers and videographers in different areas. So that's about the last I'm going to say on that part, because that's really all I have on that part. Now, from your guys' perspective, how do you see the difference? I know, Todd, you've touched on this before. How do you see your use cases between an S5 and an S1 moving forward?
No, for me,
let's start with Chris on that one.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go for it.
Wait, I was figuring on Todd's answer. So go ahead, please. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, hey, there we go.
So I'll say for me, the difference as far as using it, I think I've said this before, my everyday camera walk out the door is really going to be my S5 when I'm running out and going and shooting just my day-to-day work. However, there are those instances like you just talked about where the S1 is a camera that I'm going to pick. And I think, and if I'm going to be shooting like sports, something I need to really be able to get a super high burst rate and not fill up my buffer as quickly, I'm going to go with my S1 for sure for that. But I really think this functions as a B camera for either my S1 or my S1H. And this becomes an A camera for a lot of the quick run and gun shooting that I do. It's just, it's another tool in the toolbox that I can use. And now I have options. And this for me, as I said in a review video I did for a local camera store, there was a gap for me of a small, lightweight, compact, full-featured camera that I could just throw in a bag and take off. This is it. So this is the tool for that for me. And so that's how I'm looking at this camera in the full lineup. And I have all of the S-series cameras, and that's where that fits in. It really does. And like I said, I like this camera a lot. In fact, today I used it before we were doing the live session. I was doing a video project for a client, and this was a B camera for the S1H.
Nice. Very cool. How about you, Chris? How do you see mixing S1 and S5 in your workflow?
I did barely the same style like Todd did. We got a studio shoot, video shoot, and the S1H. It's a little bit rigged up and got focus pulling rings, and I got a focus puller. So it's way more heavy. It's on a tripod most of the time, and yeah, it's the A cam. Like Todd is using the S5 as a B cam, and as you see, it is mounted on the Ronin S. So I used it as as a B cam, which is handy to have it by the side all the time. And my Ronin don't like me anymore. And like Todd mentioned, the A cam is the S1H, and the B cam is lightweight. You can use it on the Ronin on a slider, handheld shots, moving shots, and the A cam is the S1H. For example, on the two-man show we did on the studio shoot, there were two camera guys, and one is doing the S1H with the tripod, and the other guy, me, using the S5 on the Ronin. So it's exactly like Todd described it. It's perfect. It's small. It's handy. And it's got the same V-Log, so it's the same family. It's the same lenses. You can switch between the lenses. Just totally in love with both of those.
It's funny. Chris and I've never met, but my S1H is rigged out almost the same as what he has.
Awesome. Yeah. So, Chris, you mentioned lenses before, and I think this is going to be a stretch of a segue, but that's where I'm going to choose to segue with. But there's also a additional announcement that we made with the launch of the S5, and that's the expansion of the L-mount lenses available from Panasonic for this. So, as everyone kind of has seen with the roadmap that we've had out in the past, there's been a number of prime lenses that have been on the map, and now we have more firm-ish dates for these to come out. And I say firm-ish because one of them has more of a firm release date. The other ones are coming very soon. So for those that haven't seen it, there is going to be an 85mm f1.8 coming out this year. There is a 24mm 1.8, 35mm 1.8, and a 50mm 1.8. So very soon, you're going to have an incredibly well-rounded, lighter weight, smaller, more compact set of f1.8 primes that really fit well with the platform, whether you're on an S1, S1R, or an S1H, or you're someone adopting into the brand new S5. But we've also gone and announced another new lens with this. We will also have a 70 to 300 millimeter coming that is going to be that perfect second step lens where you want that longer reach for anyone that has, say, the 20 to 60. It ends up really rounding out the system and really pushing the platform into a fairly well-rounded out system. Now, what's great about the platform in general is that, as a number of people have commented in the chat here, that it is a alliance. It is with Leica, Sigma, and Panasonic. So you have the ability to get Sigma lenses, put them on the camera that are designed for mirrorless, and even some of the adapted versions that are converted over to L-mount, and have them function on the camera. Now, what's cool about that means that, you know, if there is a lens that, say, isn't available in the Lumix lineup, or a lens that isn't available in the Sigma lineup, and you happen to be a fan of one over the other brand, you've got options available for you across the board. I haven't seen the most up-to-date entire L-mount Alliance lens, like the available lenses, but it's gigantic. It is huge. I see that there is a question here actually about the lens from McDrew. It says, or it's actually more of a comment. It says, build a Prime bundle with a nice discount for us buying into the L line. Well, funny you should mention that. There is a pre-order promotion going on in some in different locations with the S5 and this particular 45 millimeter Sigma f2.8. So check your local store for details on that. It definitely makes a really, really cool setup here. So we're getting close to the end of this stream because, like we said, we typically run for about an hour on this, and I like to kind of go into the ending section of this with asking each of you guys kind of a question about, obviously, the camera, because that's what we're talking about. But what is that one feature, and it obviously doesn't have to necessarily be one feature, but what is the most standout thing about the S5 that really struck you as you were using the camera with your time? Let's start with you, Chris, on this one.
Whew. There are so many. There are so many. You can compare it with the S1H, the features over there. I totally in love with the high-res mode. Even though I got a portrait shooting with a girl once, I used it on a tripod. I said, "Here, don't move, just don't move." And there was a 96 megapixel picture, and I used it for landscape. I use it for interior. I use it, and whenever I get the chance to use the high-res mode, I use it. And yeah, it will be better in the future. There will be more, I guess. I am not allowed to say anymore, but I love it. It's so cool. Yeah, I think it's the high-res mode, the creative thing, the live composite mode, where you can be creative in the long time exposures. There's not one thing, because there are so many. It got dual native ISO, so even though you got a low light shooting, it is working fine. It's the perfect one-man run and gun camera on events, on weddings. I got a lot of weddings, and it's like an event. It is not too heavy. You can wear 2 of them on a wedding the whole day, and you're not exhausted at the end. Yeah, there are too many features you can talk about, and of course the impressed autofocus.
Yeah, that's definitely been the trend in pretty much any time I've asked this question. But I'm going to throw the question to you also, Todd. So was there anything that really stuck out to you in the camera?
You know, for me, going back to the size and the weight, just the size, the weight of this, and then also I really like the video features because I do a lot of video, and the autofocus system. That was just a big one for me because of what I shoot and tracking models and stuff when we're doing. I like a lot of movement and motion in my shots. Just really the size, the weight of it, the autofocusing features, and then I really do like the flip out screen. I've missed that on the other S series cameras, and this was wonderful to get that. I know it's a small thing, but this was wonderful to get that.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and that's the thing.
And I'm gonna-
Camera. Oh,
And I'm going to agree
ahead.
with Chris. I mean, this truly is the one man crew, the one person crew camera. It just does everything it needed to do, and it's just easy to get around with. So,
yeah, definitely. And to the point, there's a lot that a camera is obviously the sum of its parts. So there are so many things that are going to fit for, say, you, but may not fit for somebody else. So that's why the L-mount system, that's why the Micro Four Thirds system is still alive and well. The systems are offering so much for the different styles of photo and video that are out there that there is something in the line that is going to fit your needs, and it's going to do it exceptionally well. So I know there's been a couple questions in there specifically about Micro Four Thirds, since I have seen them. We've seen them for the last number of streams that we've had here. And like I said, I know you guys have questions about, the fabled GH6 and, whatever the next thing would be called. What I do want to say is that obviously I don't have any concrete information. I don't have anything about specifically about it, but it is under consideration, and the Micro Four Thirds system is going to continue. So stay tuned, stay aware of what's going on with Panasonic, what's going on these live streams on all of our social media channels. And obviously the second something is ever talked about, or if anything does come, you guys will find out. So I want to wrap up this session with a little bit of info as to where everybody can find you guys online. I have seen a number of comments of people asking, where can they find Todd's work? Where can they find Chris's work? So, Chris, where can everybody find you out in the internets?
It's just my name, I guess. It's Chris Kueper. And you can Google it on YouTube, on Instagram. On Instagram, there are a lot of travel pictures. And I use IGTV a lot. And it's just basically my website, chriskueper.de. It's German. But it's all in English, so got a lot of portfolio stuff there. That's basically it. Instagram, YouTube, and my website.
Cool. How about you, Todd? Where can everyone find you?
Instagram's probably the best place to find me there. Just at Todd White on Instagram would be great. And then I've got a link there to my portfolio, which is one of the Adobe websites for the portfolio. I've got a website. You know how that goes. We're always creating. We're never fully updating sometimes those things. So the Instagram, and then obviously going to the Adobe portfolio from there is great too for access to the video content and stills and so on.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to join me on today's Lumix Live session. I think this was obviously very focused on the content and getting into some of the weeds with the technical details, but it's always a pleasure to talk to all of our content creators, especially you guys. Again, thanks for tuning in with it. For everybody else, for everybody else that has hung around and listened to us talk about these cameras and got your questions in, thank you so much for joining us. As I said at the beginning of the stream, your support in these events is huge for us. It helps us provide another outlet for all of you to get your questions, your suggestions, and really continue this conversation for creatives. We are always going live every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, so make sure to set it in your calendars. Better yet, if you're on YouTube and you have an account, which I think the vast majority of people do, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon on this video and get following the Lumix Cameras channel. You don't want to miss these Lumix Live sessions. Like I said, they're every week at 2 p.m. on Thursdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, that is. And with that, I'm going to leave you guys now, and we will see you next week for the next edition of Lumix Live. Thanks for watching.